Good afternoon, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner on this Thursday, October the 13th, 2016. Good to have you out here for our second of three shows this week. Our first of two shows today, as we bring you the In the Spotlight 4-1 Football Blitz on this Thursday rather than Friday, which I guess is cool. We can talk about Thursday night football before it happens for once. But hey, we are on this Thursday for the Football Blitz. We got our first of two shows. Our Thursday night primetime show will also be coming at you here tonight at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time here on Google Hangouts and YouTube Live. Tonight we'll be doing our usual entertainment stuff, box office beat, TV highlights, fall TV report, all that good stuff, entertainment news, and we'll be doing some special stuff for our anniversary tonight, which is always a fun thing to do. We always do some special things, so I want to make sure that I highlight that as well. So tonight, that's all coming up on tonight's Thursday night primetime in the Spotlight 401, coming at you tonight on Google Plus and YouTube at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time tonight. So make sure you note that. Here again, the Football Blitz here on this Thursday afternoon. As always, as we start the show, I want to remind you all the ways that you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag #ITSpotlight411, hashtag ITS Football Blitz. You can use that one. Or you can create your own hashtag as long as it's not disrespectful or insulting. So, hashtag ITS Football, hashtag ITS NFL. Well, you can do whatever you want to do as long as it's not disrespectful or insulting. That's all we ask. We encourage you also to follow us on Facebook as well. Just find us on Facebook by searching for In the Spotlight 411. And then once you find our page, make sure you like it. All right. With all that being said, as I always try to do with these Football Blitz shows, we try to get started. We try to go quickly as we possibly can because I know a lot of you you might be taking a break or you're on your way home and you have very limited time, so we don't want to waste too much of your time. We want to make sure that if you take the time out to check us out, that we do the best we can to be as efficient and quick as possible. So that's what we'll try to do here. And we'll do what we always do. We'll look back at last week's NFL and college football action, look ahead to this week's. Again, we probably won't do too much college football because until we get these playoff rankings out, it's kind of hard to kind of decipher a lot of things. But we'll do what we've been doing the last few weeks. Another thing, and I mention this every week, those of you that are still wondering about when we're going to get into more of our mailbags that we've done over the years with this football shows, where we kind of address questions and comments from you fans out there about NFL, anything to do with football, NFL, college football. We address various topics that you all bring up, or questions or comments that you all bring up. That segment will be coming back again sometime later this month. Right around the time we get to the college football playoff rankings and such, usually the better time to start it, because then you're kind of near the halfway point of the NFL season, and you're obviously more than halfway through the college football season. That's when you have, I think, the most amount of topics to discuss. So you'll see that coming back in a few weeks. I just want to make sure I note that because people still do ask, even though I've been mentioning over the last couple of weeks that we would be bringing it back. I still want to make sure that I keep reminding you all that we will be bringing it back and when we'll be bringing it back, so that you don't feel like I forgot about it. All right, so with that being said, let's jump right on into this week in football. What transpired last weekend in football with the NFL, and of course, again, college football. We'll always start with the NFL, and it was. I honestly believe. Probably, at least this is in my opinion. People might feel different because I've been pushing this narrative so far this season of how ugly things have been. Aside from week one, week one was the best week, and who would have thought the first week, when is usually the week we see more rust and more rust and more. You'd expect it to be a rough week for some team. Not every team's gonna come out of the gate strong. Sometimes teams surprise you, yes, but you'd expect some rough games and such. Well, it's been the opposite. Week one was probably the best week of the season so far, and and so the last couple of weeks, it's almost been like a steady improvement of each week. You've seen it get better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And I think finally this week you kind of saw the league get kind of back to where we were in week one. Where you had, I think as a whole, and you always have to remember, you're always going to have a couple ugly games you're going to have some bad play every week. Okay, there's some bad teams out there. That's just the way it is. But as a whole, if you can look at it as a whole and look at it and go, all right, I feel like we had a good round of games. It was a good week across the league. Then I think you feel good about it. And for the first time since week one, it wasn't just an improvement. I feel like we had a very good week across the board. Now, so that bodes well for the league, and hopefully we can get past the ugliness because we are starting to see some very compelling season long storylines that are kind of forming right now. And that would, to me, that and when we talk about season long storylines, usually we refer to specific teams. And what's going on with them. Maybe a team struggling that you didn't expect to struggle. Maybe a team that's winning that you didn't expect to win. And sometimes they're more broader storylines, like, a couple years ago with the officiating and then domestic violence situation a year or so ago, those kind of things. So, you do have various different season-long narratives that can set up, and we've started to see them now. So now that hopefully the quality of play is back to being a little more consistent, you can focus on these season-long arcs that are starting to form. And right now, in the second part of the season, and we are in that second portion of the season, we're beyond the first 4 weeks now, we've started to see these situations take shape. We have started to see these storylines take shape. We're heading into week 6 this week. I mean, hard to believe, but we are. And through 5 weeks, you've started to see what looks like they're going to be the centerpieces of what we're going to be focusing on throughout the season. Obviously, at this point, I think you can look at certain teams and say that they're going to be the teams to watch going forward as far as the upper echelon of teams. And the Patriots, we know, are going to be there. They handled their business against the Browns 33-13. No shock there. Brady comes back, no rust at all. So there you go. Sometimes people are just above being rusty. 28 for 40, 406 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was just everything you would want. And the Patriots are going to be in them upper echelon of teams. We know that. I think we all knew that going into the season. Even if they had gone like 2-2, they would have still been in that upper echelon once they got Brady back. So, the Patriots are up there. Obviously, we'll be keeping an eye on the Browns, see if they ever win a game this season. But that's at another point, I suppose. As far as what you look for in a season or a season storyline, I should say. Then you got the Eagles, who came into this weekend as one of those upper echelon teams, but suffer a major setback to the Lions, who beat them 24-23 on a field goal late. Now, look, how do you view this? The Lions have beaten the Colts and the Eagles, and both teams that many expect to be playoff teams. Obviously, the Colts have struggled, but many people still expect them to be a playoff team. What do you say to that? Out of Lions this year's Rams, where they just beat teams that they shouldn't beat and then lose to teams that they shouldn't? I don't know. But I know with the Eagles, I think you take this. Wentz was all right. 25 for 33, 238 yards, 2 TDs. Wasn't his best. Wasn't his worst. It was okay. It wasn't the best week for the Eagles, but you know what? You got beat late with a field goal. I don't think you get alarmed about the Eagles. I still think you put them in that upper echelon of teams because they got very good balance offensively and defensively. I don't think you really worry about that. You saw what they did to the Steelers a couple weeks ago. I think you really take them seriously still. So I think the Eagles are in that upper echelon of teams. I think you have to obviously put the Vikings there as they destroy the Texans 31-13. They're now 5-0, and they're doing this without Bridgewater, without Adrian Peterson. Bradford's been good as long as he stays healthy. Look, at this point, I think you have to take the Vikings seriously. They're in that upper echelon just for their defense alone and what their defense can do to teams. So they're in that upper echelon, no doubt about it. The Steelers are in an upper echelon because with the exception of the Eagles game where they laid a collective egg, they are 4-1. They've won every other game. They beat a very good Jets team who is just really, I think the Jets are that hard luck team this year that you look at their record and go, they should be better than this. They're 1-4. They're better than 1-4. They just have had a tough schedule and they just, it hasn't happened for them. But the Steelers, I think you put in that upper echelon. At 4-1, they've been dominant aside from 1 week. The Broncos, who despite their loss this week, have been dominant. you put in that upper echelon because they haven't missed a beat. Even with Simeon there now, they have not missed a beat. And obviously, they're real banged up in that. Matt might have played a role in this loss. But, hey, they're still 4-1. You still put them in that upper echelon. A team that I think we can now add to that upper echelon of teams is the Atlanta Falcons, who did not look good early, but have progressively gotten better each and every week. And they're the ones that knocked the Broncos off the undefeated list with their 23-16 victory opposite them. Matt Ryan's been great. Julio Jones has been great coming off the record-breaking performance. They got a ton of momentum. And here's the thing about Atlanta that you have to love if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan. They're 3-0 on the road. Their only loss came at home where they usually don't lose. They are 3-0 on the road through 5 weeks. So they're, with their home schedule and that, I mean, they're going to win some games. The Falcons are going to be a playoff team this year, I believe. And you have to put them in the upper echelon of teams, because especially given how their division's turning out right now. Another team I think you can add to this, to the upper echelon, is the Dallas Cowboys. I know that in the Bengals, they're playing a team that, and I've been setting this up for a couple weeks now. The Bengals do not look like the Bengals. The Bengals of the last couple years in the regular season have been dominant. Yeah, they lost a couple good teams here and there, but they've been dominant. I think the playoff failures have finally messed with their head, and your body language this year has been different. They look like a team that's broken. They look like a team that doesn't feel like it matters what they do now because they're just going to fail in the postseason. That's a problem, and that's going to be a season-long storyline to follow with the Cincinnati Bengals. Is this, because they're 2-3 now. They're 2-3. They got the Ravens to deal with. They got the Steelers to deal with. It's not going to be easy for the Bengals. It really, really, really isn't. But on the flip side, the Cowboys are 4-1. They beat the Bengals 28-14. Just a solid win. Ezekiel Elliott's been great. And obviously, Dak Prescott has been fantastic and so good to the point where if Romo comes back, people don't want him to start. They don't want Romo to disrupt this because the Cowboys are playing so well. So, Dallas, you got to put on that upper echelon of teams. You have to. You have to at this point. Obviously, I think you have to put the Packers there, and the Packers with a very, very solid 23-16 win over the Giants. They're 3-1. Rodgers looked good this week. The defense looked good this week. Overall, the offense was a little choppy. You can maybe put that on the defense, but Rodgers looked good despite that, I thought. I think coming off a bye, too, I think that kind of impacts things a little bit, too. So it was an uglier game, one of the uglier games of the weekend, but they got the job done. And I think you put the Packers in that upper echelon as well. It's going to be interesting to see where things go with them and the Vikings. And I think those are your upper echelon teams. I know the Raiders are 4-1. I'm not ready to put them there yet. I think another week or two, I think I might be. They have played extremely well. They beat a Chargers team that is, again, like they've been in the last couple of years, just a tough luck team. They just lose close games. They lost another one, 34-31 to the Raiders. They just lose close games. They stay in these games. They just can't pull them out. But the Raiders get a big win, and they're 4-1. And here's the other thing. Of their 4 wins, that was their first win at home. They have 3 wins on the road already. Much like the Falcons, that bodes well for your playoff aspirations if you're winning road games, because it's usually the opposite. Win all your home games and we score 500 on the road. Well, they're dominating more on the road, just like the Falcons are. So I think another big win or two, and the Raiders will be on an upper echelon as well. So you look at these teams, you got these teams right now, and there's quite a few teams on the upper echelon, and they've looked, even through the ugliness of the last couple of weeks, these teams have showed you moments of dominance that make you feel good about putting you on that upper echelon. Either they've been more dominant than either they've been mostly dominant, or they've been dominant enough where you feel good about putting them on that upper tier. These teams that I just mentioned. And they all had big wins over the weekend. Now, continuing on this, what we're looking at is these season-long arcs. I mentioned a couple of arcs that are of different kind, not just, looking at teams that are top-tier teams. But I mentioned the Browns, will they ever win a game this year? The Chargers and the Jets, who many people thought could be playoff teams and are better teams than their 1-4 records. have been tough luck losers this year. Where will those two teams go? The Bengals and mentally where they're at this year and what's going on with them. Those are all storylines to keep an eye on going forward. And so you got those storylines. You got the top tier teams, and you got these teams that are in the middle tier that are right there, right on the fringe, and you're going to keep an eye on where they go and see if they can put themselves on that top tier of teams to watch going forward, or be in the mix as you go forward here. I think you put the Lions there because of the fact they did beat two teams that many people consider playoff teams, and the Eagles and the Colts, and they're 2-3. So you keep an eye on them, even though the division's going to be really tough. The Colts, who I just mentioned, you put on that list, they're 2-3. They beat the Bears 29-23. I think you take the Bears off, and you don't look at the Bears anymore. If you're 1-4 at this point, I think you don't look at these teams anymore. Even though the Jets and the Chargers are better than their records, it's just too big of a hole to come out of, and there's too many teams in front at this point. I don't see a way that those teams can get back in it. So you obviously want to see how those arcs play out and see what happens with those teams as you go forward. But Colts, you put on that middle tier right now. They're a team that many people thought would be a playoff team, like last year, and they're struggling a little bit, but they're 2-3. They went to a faster tempo, which I thought helped, and they pulled out a win against a Bears team that's going to be competitive. It's just not going to really go anywhere this year. Just the way it is. So you're going to keep an eye on the Colts going forward here. I know the Titans are 2-3, but I don't put them in that middle tier. They had a 30-17 win over the Dolphins, who I think you throw in that mix with the Chargers and the Jets as being better than their 1-4. They could easily have two more wins at least. They just suffer too many close losses. Just too many. So I don't think they're going to be very much in the mix. But Tennessee, I don't buy is a team that's a 2. Honestly, I think that 2-3 is deceiving. I don't think Tennessee is very good. I just think they've had the benefit of they're playing teams that are struggling, and they're just kind of taking advantage of it. So I wouldn't put them in that middle tier. The Redskins and the Ravens, I think, go in that middle tier. The Ravens will probably end up being in an upper echelon at some point, but they've had a couple of bad weeks here. This week included, where they lost to the Redskins 16-10 in an ugly, ugly game, but more an ugly game because of the defense. Both teams' defenses were fantastic. The Redskins are on a little bit of a roll right now. They pull out this win. They're 3-2. I think you put the Redskins there because the Redskins were the team that everybody thought might win the NFC East as the lights come on here. They're a team that many people thought would win the NFC East this year. They got off to a bad start. They've come on late. And again, another team that's doing better on the road than at home. They're 2-0. So you got to put them in the mix. Then they're on that middle tier right now. The Ravens, defense has been great. Offense has been a struggle. Again, Flacco was injured last year. You're still trying to get that offense clicking together. Once they get the offense, I think they're going to be an upper echelon team, and I think you're going to see them on that top tier. But right now, you put them in the middle tier with the Redskins because they're going to be teams to watch. Texans, even though I really don't buy into them too much, I buy into them more this year than I have the last couple of years. Defensively, they can get the job done. Osweiler was not bad at the quarterback position. They are 3-2. I think you put them on that middle tier just as a team to watch. They're on the lower part of that middle tier of teams that you have to keep an eye on going forward, but they're there. They've shown enough to be there. And they ran into a tough Vikings team this week. So, but I think you put them on that middle tier of teams. I don't know if I think you put the Bengals there just based on past experience. Obviously, you're concerned about them mentally right now. They're 2-3. You do put them on that middle tier, but again, I think it's like the Texans. It's on the low end because it's mentally they just look broken. And the only reason why they're on that middle tier right now is because of their talent. I really don't have a lot of faith in them right now. I really don't. I just don't like the body language. I don't like the way I just don't like it. The Bills and the Rams, I think you put on that middle tier. They're both 3-2. They both have beaten good teams along the way here. Although the Bills win against the Patriots, I think you put as a little bit of an asterisk, but nonetheless, I think you put both these teams because of their talent and because of what they've been able to do so far on that middle tier. The Bills, of course, beating the Rams 30-19. Both these teams came in streaking a little bit. The Bills ended up winning out, most notably because of their defense, which held down the Rams. And look, you got to like where the Rams are, too, because they found ways to score over the last couple weeks, where the first couple weeks of the season they struggled with that. So, the Rams have proven themselves to be a competitive team that you have to keep an eye on, as have the Bills. So you put them on that middle tier of teams in the mix. The Chargers, again, Jets, anything 1-4, you can't. I don't think you can put on that middle tier of teams to watch. I think you're just in too big of a hole. So you read those teams alone. The Giants go on the middle tier. They started out 2-0. They've lost 3 in a row. Defensively, I think that they're getting the job done. Offensively, they're really, really struggling. Manning looks out of rhythm. Odell Beckham Jr. is more concerned with getting calls for himself instead of playing well. They have to get it together quick on offense. Defensively, they're getting everything they can. I think defensively, they're playing just fine. Offensively, they got to get back on the same page. That's their biggest problem right now, is their offense. They have to get it back on the same page, or they're going to be in some trouble. So the Giants, you put on that middle tier teams to watch. And then you got, and we look at Monday Night Football here, right, real quickly, and look at the Buccaneers and the Panthers. Now, the Buccaneers, along with the Raiders, were among those teams that people thought were sleeper teams this year. The Buccaneers have beat the Packers on Monday Night Football 17-14 in what was just, again, another ugly kind of game. But in a way, it was more because of the defense, not necessarily just the quality of play. Even though Derek Anderson, who stepped in for Cam Newton, wasn't exactly great. Look, with no Cam Newton, you knew that this was going to be a little bit more of an obtainable game for the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers have a tendency to pull off the upsets. This was a game to keep an eye on. But the Panthers still could have found a way to win this game. The Panthers look broken right now. They've had a couple of tough losses. They look broken right now. And at 1-4, considering how the Falcons have started, and, I don't know if I see them coming out of this hole. I mean, again, it's a team that loses the Super Bowl that usually struggles the next year, and here you go. But, again, a team at 1-4, despite their talent, despite what they've done, I don't think you can put them on that middle tier of teams. So I put them – the Panthers go with the Chargers and the Jets, and, those 1-4 teams I don't think can really do anything this year. Besides, you don't know when Newton's going to be back. Buccaneers, I think I don't – kind of like the Titans. I think the Buccaneers are really talented. They were one of my sleeper picks. I don't like the way they played so far this year. I haven't seen what I wanted to see from them, especially offensively. They have to get more consistent offense. I think they found some good things in their defense. They've been playing better defense over the last couple of weeks. Offensively, they got to be consistent. If they can do that, I'll feel good about them and put them in that middle tier of teams that could possibly do something this year. Right now, I don't feel good enough about it, so I put them, on the higher end of being on the fringe of a team to watch right now. I put them with the Titans, although I think they're far more talented than the Titans, as one of those teams that, despite their 2-3 record, is kind of on the outside looking in right now of teams to keep an eye on going forward here. But they got a big win over the Panthers. Big win. Now, there was 4 teams that had a bye last week. The Chiefs, the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Jaguars. Obviously, you put the Chiefs in that middle tier of teams. They've shown enough to be in that mix. The Seahawks obviously go in that upper echelon of teams because, they've shown us to be – they've really shown so far, especially the last 2 weeks, to be back on track. And I think the Jaguars, you put in that middle tier of teams on the lower end of it because of the fact – you saw them beat the Colts. They nearly beat the Packers. They've shown they're competitive. They've shown, despite their record, even though their record would indicate they should not be considered, they have shown that they could potentially do something. I think they've shown you a lot more than a lot of these other teams like at 1-4 or 2-3 have. So I think you put the Jaguars as that one of those teams to watch. And the Saints, I think you can't because they played so badly. Despite the one win they have, they played so badly, I don't think you can. So the Saints are not a team to watch. They're on the outside looking in. I think you put the Jaguars along with the Chiefs in that middle tier of teams to keep an eye on going forward, and the Seahawks going to the upper echelon. So, again, we've talked about teams to keep an eye, upper echelon of teams that feel like they're going to be elite and teams that are going to be very much in the mix, firmly in the mix for the playoffs. Then that middle tier of teams to keep an eye on that will some of which will probably end up in the mix and some that will probably fall out of it. And then you got everybody else on the outer fringe. And then, of course, the other season-long narratives, teams that are struggling that shouldn't, like the Panthers. Where are they going to go if this don't get better? the Bengals, the Jets, the Chargers, those teams, and what their season-long stories are going to be. The Browns, where they win a game, those kind of things are the other storylines you keep an eye on. So we talked about these season-long storylines that are kind of set themselves up now, and you can and like I said, once you get 4 or 5 weeks in, that's when you can start to see these things materialize, and we have. Again, quality of player across the board, I thought was better. There was still some uglier games. But again, a lot of it was created by defenses. So that's what if you're going to see ugly games, you want that. Big wins, big wins. The Buccaneers, the Redskins, the Falcons, the Cowboys. Some tough losses. The Chargers, the Jets, the Panthers, the Ravens. So, I thought a fairly interesting, solid week for the NFL, in my opinion. And that's good it's good that that's happening as you get into the second portion of the schedule. And now we head into the second week of that second portion of the schedule, week 6, which will get underway tonight with a Thursday night football game, but that you have to feel bad that the Chargers are getting. 8:25 p.m. Eastern, CBS from San Diego, California. 4-1 Broncos, 2-0 on the road. 1-4 Chargers, 1-1 at home. If you're the Chargers and you've suffered all these tough losses, the last thing you want to see is the 4-1 Broncos coming off a loss. So last thing you want to see. A lot of people think the Chargers will be in this game. They probably will be for at least a while. They've been competitive in every game they played. In some cases, they've had big leads and they let them go. So they'll probably be competitive in this game. But ultimately, I think it comes down to the Broncos just a better team. The Broncos could beat them with their defense alone. And the Broncos will beat them. No doubt about it. The Broncos will win this game, get back on track here. And it'll just be another tough loss for the Chargers, I imagine. But yeah, I don't have any doubt. But I think it'll be a fairly well-played game. I think it'll be entertaining. Again, I think the Chargers will stay in it for at least most of the game to keep you entertained. But I just don't see the Chargers being able to pull it out. I just don't see it. Against worse teams this year, they haven't been able to pull it out. So again, I just don't see them doing against Denver. So I think Denver has. I think I favor Denver heavily tonight. Despite the fact, I think it'll be a competitive game. I got some nose issues, so I apologize. So yeah, I would go with the Broncos tonight. Now Sunday. Sunday's games, a fairly interesting grouping of games. Some very big rivalries on tap for Sunday. We'll go over all these games right now. Sunday's Week 6 slate includes a 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Buffalo, New York. The 1-4 49ers, 0-2 on the road. At the 3-2 Bills, 1-1 at home. The Bills are heavily favored. They come into this game with a lot of momentum, playing very good football, especially on defense. Colin Kaepernick will take over the starting quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers this week over Blaine Gabbert. We'll see how that changes things. Obviously, the last time Kaepernick was the quarterback, it wasn't pretty. I don't really think it matters who the quarterback is. Offensively, the 49ers just don't have enough weapons. Defensively, they can keep their team in the game. Offensively, they just don't have a whole lot of weapons. And the way Buffalo's defense is playing right now, I don't really feel like Kaepernick at the quarterback position is going to really make much difference. I think the Bills win this game. And it's obviously going to be interesting to see Kaepernick on the field starting and the reaction, everything that's been going on. So it should be an interesting kind of game to kind of watch for for those reasons. But I think the Bills will have this game pretty easily. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on Fox. From FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. 3-1 Eagles, 1-1 on the road. 3-2 Redskins, 1-2 at home. Redskins come into this game having won 3 in a row. Eagles come into this game having lost their first game of the season. Eagles are favored here. This is going to be a good game. I look forward to this game. A good rivalry game against a team that many people, on one side is one team that people thought might win the NFC East, and the other is a surprise team that's right now right up at the top of the NFC East along with the Cowboys. It's a very good division so far. It's a very close division. Every game's going to matter here. Eagles have played well on both sides of the football. Offense was a little bit out of sync last week, but generally they've been very, really good on both sides of the ball. Redskins defensively, especially defensively, have been very, very good over the last couple of weeks. Offensively, it's kind of been up and down, but we know they have the capability of being an explosive football team. If they can get that going in this game offensively, especially at home, then I think they have a good chance at winning this game. The thing that the thing that I look for here is the Eagles to be better offensively. They've been so efficient and so sound offensively that after last week, I think that they're gonna I expect them to get back on track, even against a good defensive team at the Redskins. I think, and from what I've seen so far, I just feel like the Eagles are just a smidge better than the Redskins all around, just a smidge. I think while the Redskins are probably more explosive offensively, I think the Eagles are a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Sound. It goes back to the old saying that sometimes it's the more efficient team, it's the more sound team, the one that doesn't take as many risks that will be the better team. Even though sometimes you want the team to take risks, you have to take risks when they're you have to take the risk when it's the right moment. You can't just take risks for the sake of taking risks. And I don't know if the Redskins are necessarily that team, but I think the Eagles take fewer risks in general. And I think that might help in a game against an explosive team like the Redskins, who the Eagles will be sure to cover downfield, because that's what the Redskins like to do. They like the big plays. So the Eagles are going to be making sure they try to limit those big plays. And if those big plays are limited, and the Eagles do have the personnel to limit those kind of big plays downfield, then the Redskins get shut down quite a bit on offense just doing that. So I don't know. I even though it's a road game, I like the way the Eagles have been playing. You know, the Redskins had a very tough first 2 weeks that kind of made you worried about them as a team. But I expect a really good game. I just think the Eagles had while the Redskins are the more explosive team, I think the Eagles all around the better team and the more cohesive team and the more sound team is the better way to put it. So I'm going to go with the Eagles edging out the Redskins in what should be a very, very close game, I think. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on CBS from Nashville, Tennessee. 0-5 Browns, 0-3 on the road. 2-3 Titans, 0-2. Titans get a gift here because as bad as the Titans are, they're better than the Browns. And it's an opportunity for the Titans to get to 500, which will help them. Even though I don't buy too much into them. I expect the Titans to win this game, especially being at home. I don't know by how much. I expect it to be a fairly ugly game, but I think the Titans win this game. 1 o'clock from Eastern time game from East Rutherford, New Jersey, MetLife Stadium. 3-2 Ravens, 2-0 on the road. 2-3 Giants, 1-1 at home. Classic rivalry between two teams that met in the Super Bowl in 2000. Ravens defensively have been great. Offensively, it's been a struggle as Flacco on the offense tries to find their balance. Giants defensively have been pretty solid. Offensively, the last couple of weeks has been horrible. Really, this game to me comes down to this. All right? Because the Ravens offense is going to be a work in progress. It's going to make the Giants defensive schemes a lot easier for that. It's going to be a lot easier for the Giants defensively this week. The Ravens are struggling offensively. It's not going to, again, it's a work in progress. That's going to benefit the Giants there because they're not going to have to worry so much about the offense of the Ravens. Defensively, the Ravens are going to really limit the Giants. Really what this comes down to is this. The Giants are going to have to make the most of their opportunities. They're not going to have a lot. And by make the most of their opportunities, they have to be safe with the ball. They cannot turn it over. They need a big game out of their receivers, Odell Beckham Jr., Victor Cruz. And they got to be able to run the ball effectively. Offensively, they have got to make the most of their opportunities and be good with the ball. If they're safe with the ball, they don't turn it over, and they make the most of their opportunities, I think they can eke out a win here. I really do. I think they can eke out a win, especially at home. So the Giants have played so badly offensively the last 2 weeks. I don't think with the talent they have, they can do it a third week. So I'm going to pick the Giants to win this game, not by a lot, because I think it's going to be a very competitive game. But I'm going to go with the Giants here to edge this game out over the Ravens. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on Fox from New Orleans, Louisiana, Mercedes-Benz Superdome. 1-4 Panthers, 0-2 on the road. 1-3 Saints, 0-2 at home. This is, look, I think both these teams are in too big of a hole anyway. Obviously, more so the Panthers. But if either one of these teams have any chance of doing anything this year, they have to win this game. Whoever loses is really, truly done. Obviously, Panthers are banged up. I don't think Cam Newton's playing. So if he's not playing, I don't like this game for the Panthers. You're playing the Saints at home. I understand they're 0-2 at home. But you see the way that the Panthers looked last week about Newton. They looked all out of sorts. Obviously, defensively, they'll probably play harder and limit the Saints a little bit. But the Saints have too explosive an offense, I think. Even if you limit them, I don't think it's going to make much difference because without Cam Newton, it's clear the Panthers just offensively are not clicking. You saw that last week. So I actually think the Saints will pull this one out here and finish off the Panthers for this year. I really do. I think the Saints pull this out. It might end up being a close, kind of ugly, gritty kind of game, but I like the Saints to edge out the Panthers here. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Soldier Field in Chicago. The 1-3 Jaguars, 0-1 on the road, 1-4 Bears, 1-1 at home. I like the Jaguars here. If I look at the Jaguars and how they played so far, despite their record, versus how the Bears have played, I think the Jaguars have played better. I think the Jaguars have played good on both sides of the football. I honestly think the Jaguars' effort in every single game has been really good, while the Bears have been very up and down, particularly offensively. I think the more consistent team's been the Jaguars, and because of that, despite them being on the road, I'm picking the Jaguars to win this game. And it'll be a competitive game, but I think the Jaguars win it. It'll be a big win for them, gets them to 2-3. 1 o'clock Eastern game on Fox from Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. 3-2 Rams, 2-1 on the road, 2-3 Lions, 1-1 at home. Lions have been beating some teams that really you wouldn't think they'd beat. So you got to take them serious for here. You know they're going to be able to put up points. The question is going to be whether they can shut a team down defensively. The Rams have found ways to score over the last couple of weeks after starting horribly offensively. Defensively, we know they can get after it. To me, the Rams to me have seemed a little bit more consistent than the Lions. So I also think, too, defensively, I think the key to this game is defense, more or less. Lions don't have a good defense. The Rams have a decent enough one to shut a team down. I think that's the biggest key here. And because of that, I think I'm going to go with the Rams because I just think they have the better defense. So I'm going to pick the Rams in what should be a pretty close game from Detroit, Michigan. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Hard Rock Stadium, Miami. 4-1 Steelers, 1-1 on the road, 1-4 Dolphins, 1-1 at home. I know the Dolphins' 1-4 record is not all indicative of how they play. They should have a better record, but I don't think that matters in this game. The Steelers are far and away better. Aside from 1 week, they've been one of the most dominant teams in the NFL. They played well on both sides of the football. They're going to dominate this game. They're going to beat the Dolphins fairly easily, I think, in this game. No doubt about it. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on CBS, Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, Massachusetts. 2-3 Bengals, 1-2 on the road, 4-1 Patriots, 2-1 at home. Based on the way that the Bengals have played this year, their body language, I've already mentioned it enough. Mentally, they just look broken. They really do. They look like they're almost giving up. Like nothing matters because they just don't play well in the playoffs. They just look like a team that just is broken. The Patriots have a lot of momentum. Brady's back. This is not. Look, if the Bengals ever pulled this win off, it'd be huge for them. It could carry them, who knows how far. I don't see it. I think it's going to be a bad game for them. I think the Patriots win this game easily. I really do. The way that the Bengals come in, they're kind of limping in. The Patriots are flying on a high right now. They got Tom Brady back. This, to me, is going to be an ugly game. I think the Patriots win this one big. Okay, now we move on to the 4 o'clock window games. 4:05 p.m. Eastern, CBS, Oakland Coliseum in Oakland, California. 2-2 Chiefs, 0-2 on the road, 4-1 Raiders, 1-1 home. This is a big game for the Kansas City Chiefs because where the Raiders are right now is where the Chiefs thought they'd be. The Raiders, if the Raiders could pull this one off, this would go a long way to me putting them in that upper echelon of teams. Raiders are at home. This figures to be a close game. The Raiders defensively, we know, are really solid. Offensively, they've looked really good so far, very consistent. Carr has been great for the Raiders. The Chiefs, it's been a struggle. They've been kind of inconsistent. They haven't offensively, it hasn't always been pretty, but they found ways to get it done. Defensively, they've been about as good as you thought they'd be. So really, it's about whether they can score points, really, and score on the Raiders. I'm going with the Chiefs here only because I think that they do have a tendency. They're not a team that starts out well. This is the time of season right now, right around the time when they start having buys and such, where they start to get hot. This is what the time of the season they got hot last year. I'm betting on them doing that again because I think they're too good of a team to hover around 500. So I think they're going to go on a little bit of a roll here. And I think that they match up very well with the Raiders. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs here in what should be a very, very close game from Oakland. 4:25 p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Seattle, Washington. 4-1 Falcons, 3-0 on the road. 3-1 Seahawks, 2-0 at home. Another good game. Another good game. This is a gut check for the Falcons. If they want to prove that they're on the upper echelon of the NFC, you beat the Seahawks in Seattle. That puts you right up there. That really does. It's a big game for them. Seahawks come off a bye, looking to continue to search for momentum after a slow start. They're looking to keep their streak up a little bit. Seattle's very tough to beat in their building, even though Atlanta's 3-0 on the road. First of all, I think even as good as Atlanta's played, Seattle, I think, is the better team, and they're at home. So I am going to go with Seattle here for those reasons. Plus, again, I think they're the better team, and I think that Atlanta has had it easy the last couple of weeks because they've been able to kind of get what they want offensively, and it's allowed them to take more risks than they usually would take. They're not going to get that against Seattle. They're not. So Seattle's going to shut those opportunities down, and it's going to be very hard to get those opportunities. So I'm going to go with Seattle here over the Atlanta Falcons, what should be a very, very good game, I think, out in Seattle. 4:25 p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Lambeau Field, a classic rivalry, a classic game. Very good game here. 4-1 Cowboys, 2-0 on the road, 3-1 Packers, 2-0 at home. This is a big game for both teams. This could solidify the Cowboys in that upper echelon of teams. The Packers are already there. Many people think they're going to win the Super Bowl. They're at home here. This is the game that a lot of people look at the Packers and go and shut down the Cowboys. Don't make them think that, because the Cowboys are already getting designs. I'm like, we're one of these teams. The Packers want to shut them down thinking, hey, you know what? You're not one of these teams. It's one of these classic rivalries where you're trying to shut that other team down and make them doubt themselves. And this could be a very close game. Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott have been fantastic for Dallas. Obviously, we knew that we came into the season saying, you know what? We'll see what they get out of the quarterback. Hopefully, defensively, they can keep themselves in games and maybe they can pull out some wins. They've done more than that. Their defense has been good. Offensively, they've been efficient. Elliott's run the ball effectively. Prescott's been very good with the football. I like what the Cowboys have done this season. I really, really have. They won big games. And I actually think they're going to win this one. I don't like the way the Packers offense played last week. It was a little choppy. Even though Rodgers looked good within it, everybody around them seemed out of it. And I think that's what made it so choppy. Defensively, you know, they're going to do an okay job, but they're not a great defensive team. And they've shown that this year. You look at, they almost lost to the Jaguars, and they're not a great defensive team. They're good enough. I mean, they're not the Colts or anything, but they're good enough. You know, they're not bad like the Colts or the Lions, but they're good enough. They're good enough. And I think that's the key to this game because the Cowboys have found ways to, with Dak Prescott, to exploit what you give them defensively. And I think they're going to do that here. I actually like this game for the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys win a very close, good game from Lambeau Field. I really do. I really, really like the way the Cowboys have played. Really, really like it. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be a great game, probably the game of the weekend. I'm going with the Cowboys. Sunday Night Football, 8:30 p.m. Eastern from Houston, Texas. 2-3 Colts, 0-2 on the road, 3-2 Texans, 3-0 at home. An opportunity for the Colts to do what I think they want to do, which is take their rightful place at the top of the AFC South. They believe that the last couple of years they believe that they've let other teams think that it's not theirs anymore. They're trying to reclaim that, and they have an opportunity here to do that here and knocking off the Houston Texans, who many people have felt might be that team that wins it this year. It's a road game. Colts are 0-2 in road games. They went to an up-tempo offense last week. I think they got to go to it this week. If they go to that, I think they'll have very good success. They have got to get the most out of their offense. And if they have to play fast to do it, then that's what they're going to have to do, because that's the best. When they're up-tempo, that's the best their offense has looked. That's the only time this year their offense has looked good, like it's capable of being. When they slow things down, it looks like a mess. So the key for them is to keep getting what they've been able to get out of their offense when they've sped things up. And defensively, they got to make plays. They've got to make plays. They've got to shut down the run and make it a passing game. Because even though Osweiler's not a bad quarterback and he can get the ball downfield, he likes a lot of short yardage plays. He likes to be conservative. You want to shut down the running game, put all the pressure on Osweiler to pass the football and put him into long yardage situations. If you do that, I think the Colts have a very good chance here. So that's the keys for the Colts. I am going to pick the Colts here because I do like the way they played at the end of that Bears game. I like what they found on offense, going up tempo. Hopefully they stick with it. If they do, I think they're the favorite here. And I think they win this game. And I think this will be another good competitive game. I think there's going to be a lot of good competitive games, a lot of rivalry games, divisional rivalries, a lot of classic matchups. It's going to be a good week of football, I think. I think it's the best. I think this has the potential to be the best week of the season so far. It has the best matchups across the board. In division rivalries, classic rivalries, I think there'll be a lot of close games. And based on the fact that the quality of play improved last week and hopefully will continue this week, I think that bodes well. And there's still one more game we have to preview here, and it's the Monday Night Football game, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN from Glendale, Arizona. 1-4 Jets, 1-2 on the road, 2-3 Cardinals, 1-2 at home. We never talked about the Cardinals earlier. The Cardinals are on that middle tier of teams. A team that, people thought was a Super Bowl team going in based on their performance the last couple of years. It's really just a matter of staying healthy. They've struggled out of the gate here. They looked good last week. I think they're going to look good this week. The Jets, I think, the Jets are going to give you a game here. They're going to be competitive. They're going to come out on defense. Offensively, it's been a struggle for them. The Cardinals, we know, are solid on both sides of the football, so there's not one thing you can exploit with them. It should be a close, competitive game, but I think the Cardinals is flat out better, despite them being a little bit beat up right now. So I'm going with the Cardinals here, especially at home, to beat the Jets, and that'll be the end of the Jets for the year. But I like the Cardinals here to win this game and get back to 500, and that obviously even firms up their position in that middle tier of teams I mentioned earlier. So again, that should be another good game. So a lot of really good games across the board here. I'm really looking forward to this week in the NFL. So many good games. So many good games. To me, this is the week where the season really feels like it's starting to get going. Because you look at these matchups and you're like, wow, there's some very good matchups this week. And really will add some clarity to the beginning of the playoff picture, because that's what you start to do. You get past week 6, you're heading towards you're closing in on the halfway point of the season. The playoff picture starts to take shape a little bit. You're going to get some clarity because some teams, look, if you look at the Panthers-Saint game, you look at some of these games where these teams are 1-3, 1-4. If you lose, you're pretty much done. It kicks you out of the mix. So you're going to get some clarity this week on some levels. So, all right, so we looked at the NFL last week, what's coming up this week. Now let's flip the script to college football. Coming off of a fairly, I thought, mediocre week. I mean, there was some good movement that's going to really play a role in the playoff rankings, no doubt. But I didn't think it was a very big week. I thought it was a fairly mediocre week. They've had, college football's benefited from having some really good games the last couple of weeks, and this week it kind of took kind of was a lackluster week. The Alabama-Arkansas game that we previewed ended up being a blowout, 49-30. Not that, I mean, I knew we picked Alabama to win anyway, but, I thought it used to be a competitive game. Ohio State had no problem taking care of Indiana. Clemson had no problem taking care of BC. Michigan, 78-0 over Rutgers. Wasn't even fair, that game. Washington handled its business. Houston handled its business. One of the better games of the weekend was Texas A&M Tennessee. Tough loss for Tennessee, 45-38 over A&M. That's a big win for A&M in double overtime. I don't think it really hurts Tennessee too much because really in this game, I think the committee will look at Tennessee and will keep them right in that rank, like top 12. They showed a lot in that game. But A&M did too, and that's a big win for A&M. That's going to propel them forward. Florida State with the big win over Miami 2019. That's a devastating loss for Miami. Florida State, that keeps them in the mix. That's a big win for them, but they have a ways to go to put themselves in a good position again. I think that probably killed Miami's chances because I think they really needed to kind of run the table for a little bit here. And losing a real Florida State team probably hurts them big time. Stanford, any chance they had is gone. They lost 42-16 to Washington State. A horrible loss there. Virginia Tech beats North Carolina 34-3. That hurts North Carolina big time. Not so much not just the loss, but the way they lost. Doesn't make them look very good at all. LSU Florida got postponed. They'll be making it up at a later date. It's a bigger game for Florida than it's for LSU. Oklahoma hangs on off against Texas 45-40 in that rivalry game. That's a big win for Oklahoma, who's kind of just hanging on by a thread as far as their playoff chances go. And Utah with a big win over Arizona 36-23. Utah's a team that they're not a team that you would consider being in the mix, but they're hanging out there, and we'll see what happens over the next week or two. If they can keep rattling off wins, then they might be able to sneak themselves closer, and we'll see if other teams lose in front of them. They could always find a way to sneak in, but they have a ways to go before they get to that point. So again, I guess the only big happenings are Florida State beating Miami, the Stanford loss, which officially pushed them out, Virginia Tech beating North Carolina, and Oklahoma really beating Texas. Those were the big happenings in Week 6 of college football. And as you go into Week 7, and we're now within 2 weeks of the first playoff rankings being released, these games are, it's really starting to amp up a little bit now. You're halfway through October. Going to really keep an eye on things here, see who's in the mix and who isn't, and obviously every win and loss counts, but these next 2 weeks are big for positioning purposes. There's not a whole lot of big games across the board here. There really isn't. The only games that I think are really, really, really interesting, North Carolina, Miami, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, ABC on Saturday. 4-2 North Carolina, 4-1 Miami. A North Carolina win there probably puts them at least back in the conversation. Miami win finishes North Carolina off. A Miami loss probably finishes off Miami firmly, without a doubt. So that's essentially a play-out game. Really, whoever loses that game is firmly out of the picture. Alabama, Tennessee is probably the biggest game of the weekend. 3:30 p.m. Eastern from Knoxville, Tennessee. This 6-0 number 1 team in the country, Alabama, 3-0 in the SEC versus the number 9 Tennessee, 5-1. Number 9 team in the country, Tennessee, 5-1, 2-1 in the SEC. If Tennessee could pull this out, then I honestly believe, and I'm not even kidding you, I think they pretty much lock themselves into the top 5 at least in the rankings. That's how big of a win this would be. They're not. It's not going to happen because Alabama's just too good. But it's a big game for Tennessee to kind of prove themselves a little bit. Even if they're competitive, it might help them. They just don't want to get blown out of this game. I think Alabama's going to win, but it's definitely an interesting game worth watching. Let's see, anything else? Ole Miss, Arkansas. Ole Miss is number 12 in the country. They're 3-2. Arkansas is 4-2 and number 22. It's not you know what? I guess it's a game that matters. Ole Miss will probably win it. Both these teams, I think, at this point around the outside looking in, and they're going to need a lot of help to kind of be in that playoff mix. Ohio State, Wisconsin, 8:00 p.m. Eastern on ABC. From Madison, Wisconsin. Ohio State, of course, 5-0, number 2 in the country, 2-0 in the Big Ten. Wisconsin, number 8 in the country, 4-1, 1-1 in the Big Ten. You look at this and you're going to go, this should be one of the bigger games of the weekend. I kind of feel the same way about this game as you do about the Alabama game. You look at it, it's an opportunity for Wisconsin to make a statement, at least be competitive, might keep, make them look good. If they ever pull out the win, it probably would lock them into at least the top 5 in the rankings. But I don't think they will. I think Ohio State, much like Alabama, will dominate this game. So I mean, these 2 big games should be really, more or less, will probably be blowouts. So I mean, there's really no big good games. I mean, the two best games will probably end up being blowouts because I just don't think the other teams are good enough to stay in it with those teams. I just think Ohio State and Alabama are too good for Tennessee and Wisconsin. I just think they are. So I don't really think those games, even though on paper they look like they could be good games, I don't think those games are going to be really that good. So this weekend in college football, there's really not much going on. Like I said, I think Ohio State will win big. I think Alabama will win big. I think Miami will probably beat between Miami and North Carolina. I won't say Miami will win. I think North Carolina will win. I've liked North Carolina until last week when they kind of fell off a little bit. I think North Carolina will beat Miami. Outside of that, there's really no good games that I think are even close to being worth watching, at least in my opinion. So that's why I said we don't have a lot of college football, because last week there wasn't a whole lot of big stuff that happened. This week there's not a whole lot of good games. You know, now next week, heading into the playoff rankings, and then you start looking at the fact that, you look at next week, you're about a month away from the season ending. A month away from the season ending. So then it's going to get interesting, especially with the rankings coming out. So I think we're going to have far more to look at and far more to talk about when that happens. This week is just there's really nothing. There really is. Last week didn't have a lot of big happenings. This week has really no good games. And the good games the good games on paper look like they're going to be ugly blowout kind of games. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about. So like I said earlier in the show, our mailbag segment where we discuss various topics from NFL and college football based on questions and comments you all submitted. We'll bring that back. Probably, I don't know if we'll be back next week, but at least the week after that, we'll probably be back. We'll be bringing that back, and we'll do some of that at the end of the shows after we get done with all the usual stuff. So you can look forward to that. With that being said, we've covered everything we have to cover. No need to waste time, especially since I try to keep this as quick as possible out of convenience for all of you out there. So with that being said, we will wind down. As always, the show might be over. It does not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to our show. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us your feedback, your reactions, comments, or opinions on things we said in the show, things we talked about on the show, any topic ideas or breaking news items from sports, entertainment, or wrestling you want to make sure that we cover. You can submit to us just your general feedback, question about the show and scheduling the show. Any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Please remember to use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411, hashtag itsfootballblitz, or hashtag its411 like I just mentioned, or you can create your own hashtag as long as it's not disrespectful or insulting. So, if you talk about football, hashtag itsfootball. Movies, hashtag movies, whatever the case may be, just don't be disrespectful or insulting. That's all we ask. We also encourage you to follow us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure you like our page upon finding it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show, especially as it relates to scheduling with the football shows. Obviously, we move them around quite often. You look at what happened last week, our primetime shows. We had delays, postponements. You never know when times might change or dates might change, so it's always important to follow us on social media to make sure you get that late-breaking information. And obviously, we always post opinions on there as well, so make sure you do follow us on social media to make sure you're kept up to date. If you'd like to keep up with our show or look back at past episodes, you have a number of ways in which to do that. If you're a fan of streaming and seeing us on screen, maybe you're only interested in some of our more recent episodes. If any of that applies to you, then you might be interested in searching for us on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both sites, and you'll have access to every episode we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube, which is every episode we've done over the last year of our show. So everything from mid-October of last year all the way up until today. Every episode that we've done, all those episodes that we've done for Google Plus and YouTube available anytime you wish. So if you missed a part of an episode and want to watch the episode again, or miss an entire episode, you can do all that here on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. You'll have access to all the episodes we produced for Google Plus and YouTube. If you're more of a fan of audio podcasts, maybe you want to listen to us on the go anytime you want. Or maybe you're interested in older episodes of our show. If any of that applies to you, then you might want to check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. And you'll have access to every episode we've done in the 6 years that we've been doing this show. So everything from our original run on Blog Talk Radio from October 2010 to January 2011. Everything from our Talk Shoe run from January 2011 all the way up until mid-October of 2015. And of course, everything from our Google Plus YouTube run, which is mid-October of last year, all the way up into today's episode. All those episodes transferred into audio format for your convenience, so you can listen to them. anytime you wish. So those episodes, every episode we produce for Google Plus and YouTube, transfer into audio for you and available as well. So every episode we've ever done, in order from most recent to the oldest, available on Podbean and iTunes anytime you wish. So if you miss an episode, missed a part of an episode, want to listen to an episode again, maybe you're a longtime fan that wants to go back and look and listen to classic episodes from way back when, or a new fan that never listened to those episodes that wants it for the first time, or whatever the case, want to generally catch up on the show, whatever the case, you can do all that on Podbean and iTunes and listen to us anytime you wish. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites, and you'll be able to do that. So Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, all ways in which you can watch and listen to the show. Keep up on episodes, look back at classic episodes anytime you want. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on all those sites. Okay, I want to thank myself for another great show, pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and your contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching, and to those that will be watching and listening later, thank you to you as well. Thank you for your patience as we were a little later in getting on the air today. That's nothing new with us, as you all know. Thank you for that. And this is not our last show for today. Again, we're going to have another show, our usual Thursday night In the Spotlight 411 primetime show. We'll be coming at you tonight at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Plus and YouTube. We'll do all usual entertainment stuff, box office beat, TV highlights, fall TV report, movie picks, entertainment news, and of course, our special feature for tonight, we'll be looking back on 6 years of In the Spotlight 411 as we celebrate our 6-year anniversary, a week later than planned, but still, we will be doing that. All of that coming up on tonight's Thursday night primetime In the Spotlight 411. Tonight at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time here on Google Plus and YouTube. That is our next show. So until later today, I hope you all have a great afternoon. We'll see you back here at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Google Plus and YouTube for our Thursday night primetime show of In the Spotlight 411. Until then, have a good afternoon, everybody. We'll see you later.